Toss aside the touchy-feely notions of love in business and recognize the real power it holds. Welcome to the Love is Just Damn Good Business podcast with host Steve Farber. Drawing on his work with a wide variety of companies from the Fortune 100 to smaller family-owned businesses, Farber shares inspiring interviews with business leaders and proven strategies for how you can create experiences that your customers will love by developing a culture that your employees, teammates, and colleagues love working in. Discover why and how love, at the end of the day, is just damn good business for you too. Here's your host, Steve Farber.
Hi, this is Steve Farber, and welcome to another episode of the Love is Just Damn Good Business podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. This podcast is brought to you by the Extreme Leadership Institute. Come visit what we do at www.extremeleadership.com. We're in the business of helping organizations operationalize love as a foundational business practice. And speaking of love, as we always do on this podcast, thus the name of the podcast, which also, by the way, is the name of my most recent book, Love is Just Damn Good Business. And why do we call it that? For one very simple reason. Love is just damn good business. And towards that end, I want to introduce you to my guest today, Neil Gill, who is the CEO and president of a company called Dogtopia. I want to tell you a little bit about the company, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Neil. And let me just say, you are in for, no pun intended, a treat. Founded in 2002, Dogtopia is the nation's leading franchise of dog daycare, boarding, and spa facilities, offering your dog a loving experience focused on trust, safety, and transparency. With an emphasis on socialization, education, and exercise for your doggy, pet parents have the assurance of leaving their beloved furry family members in the hands of highly trained professionals in an environment created with the well-being of dogs in mind. Each facility averages between 3,000 and 10,000 square feet and is designed to provide dogs and pet parents with the best loving experience while creating an environment that is ideal for your pup. They have over 130 locations across America, and Neil Gill, our guest today, is the CEO and president. Now, Neil has spent more than 35 years in the franchising world with international brands like KFC, Pizza Hut, Brinker International, and he spent more than 11 years at Gloria Jean's Coffees as the CEO, opening more than 1,000 stores across 39 countries. So this guy has lots of expertise and experience in taking franchise brands all the way through IPOs, and he's worked in a variety of sectors from online education to weight loss to bakeries to Asian tea. He has a love of franchising, and he's got an entrepreneurial spirit. And of course, our conversation today will turn to love. I mean, you love your dog, don't you? So let's hear how Dogtopia creates an experience that pet parents, doggies, and employees all love being a part of. Enjoy. How did you go about making it different and engaging for folks?
We started by just repositioning the brand and really getting an understanding of what the competitor set looked like out there, who our core target demographic were, and then what were their key drivers. So the female millennial definitely wants to be part of a brand.
Right.
They certainly want to have their own fingerprint on the brand, but they also need to understand what the brand stands for, and it needs to be aligned with their own belief sets. And so pulled a really great brand agency together here in Phoenix, just a small group called Blind Society that worked very, very closely with me. We got to understand each other really quickly. And as part of the process, engaged all the key stakeholders in the business around it. So our own support team had them heavily involved, our own franchisees had them involved, and then also had the store team members involved in the process as well, and kind of collecting their thoughts and views around what does the company stand for. And it was what was interesting in the whole piece was that we landed in two parts. Kind of the first part was about the beliefs that everybody should own a dog because of the joy that a dog brings to your life. And then the second piece was moving away from the kind of traditional positioning of businesses in the dog world where they support shelters and really enabling dogs to live up their reputation of being man's best friend. And so we did a whole lot of work around what could that mean, what could that look like. And so we ended up landing on our noble cause after several versions of working together across it. And so it became, to enhance the joy of dog parenthood and enable dogs to positively change our world. And, it's a statement that people can get behind, they can believe in, and, they can live.
So what it sounds like is there's a number of things that I'm hearing there. One is, first you made the decision that we're not going to do the traditional kind of saltine cracker vision, mission, and values stuff.
Yeah.
That it had to be something, your expression of what you guys believe in had to really reflect kind of the soul of the company, the brand of the company.
And the people of the company.
And the people. And then that's the other thing that I'm hearing there is a very collaborative process, it sounds like.
Absolutely. And so that's part of my leadership style is big believer in, I think it's part of the Australian that's in me, and that's bring your people around you and then listen to them.
It's kind of amazing, isn't it? We've been talking about that for at least 30 years. It's like, it should be just common knowledge by now. And it's amazing how often we still have to remind people of that.
Life and business gets in the way of the people side of things, and we're going to constantly remind ourselves of it all. We all do. There's constant reminders of people first.
First of all, geographically, where are you guys located?
So our support office is in Phoenix.
Yeah.
And so we moved it to Phoenix in 2015.
Right.
So originally the offices were in Virginia. So moved to Phoenix in 2015, mainly because of the amount of franchise talent there is in Phoenix. So there's a number of different franchise groups based here. And what I knew I needed to do was to build a leadership group and a support office group fairly quickly that had really solid, deep franchise understanding. Because the business had grown up on a group of people that were very much understood dogs and had established really wonderful safety protocols, but it had taken a long time to grow, so there was really no strategic elements to it all and very little franchise understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So I had TFS already had offices here. I utilized some of their skill sets early in the piece, but then Arizona is quite a company-friendly state as well.
And then, so where are your stores across the country? Are they? Is it regional? Is it nationwide? Or?
Yeah, so we're in 14 different states of the US. Plus, we have 5 stores up in Canada. So we're on the East Coast and the West Coast. So we're spread from the East Coast to the West Coast of the US and the East Coast to the West Coast of Canada. 14 different states in the US.
When you started to do this, to launch this process of capturing what you stand for and believe in and your operating principles and all that, whatever you want to call it, whatever you generically call it, how did you get that kind of input from folks that are scattered all around the country and Canada?
So we did a series. So we started a weekly communication piece, which we call Grow Dogtopia Grow. So that goes out every Friday night, and I brought on board an incredibly emotionally intelligent VP of operations, and she started developing real relationships with our franchisees. So we did a series of things, so workshops in the field. So we actually went out, spent a couple of days at a time just running workshops together. What are the key needs of the franchisees and their teams? We have 4 corporate stores over on the East Coast, so I spent some time with our store managers and our team members. I spent time in the actual playrooms, working with the room attendants and the dogs, just to get a really clear understanding of the challenges and what the business is about. So we ran a series of the workshops. We ran webinars as well, so we continue to run both those. We did a number of surveys just through SurveyMonkey online. As part of Grow Dogtopia Grow, just direct phone calls with franchisees.
So you first came in and you said, what year did you start there?
2015.
Okay. So still pretty early on now, right? I mean, in the grand scheme of things.
I kind of considered this at that point in time a 30-store startup was how I looked at the business.
Right. So when you started to reach out to the field in this process, was that pretty early on in your tenure there?
Yeah, it was my first month. I hit the road in the first month, and I just went to our teams and just said, I'm here to learn. I'm new to the dog world. Teach me everything I can learn.
And did you get any resistance to what you were doing, or how were you met?
Yeah, interesting question. So some of our franchisees, because they weren't used to a collaborative approach, it's interesting when you throw a collaborative approach at a team of people that aren't used to it, how they approach it nervously. They always think that there's some ulterior motive around it all.
Right.
And so it took a little while to build that trust, and that's why I did the sessions over 1 and 2 days, so that some of the time was just having dinner together. I find having dinner with people over a glass of wine helps breaks the ice and helps them understand you're actually human. Ultimately, you want the same things.
Right. I just kind of flashed back on a metaphor that a mentor of mine used to use. When you say that people, if you ask most people, would you rather be told what to do or would you rather be in a collaborative environment? Most people would tell you, I'd rather be in a collaborative environment, right?
Yeah.
But then when it comes time to actually do it, you're met oftentimes with suspicion everywhere, the whole spectrum from, suspicion to downright cynicism and skepticism and, everything in between.
And also fear. There's some fear in the piece as well, because if they've been in an environment where they haven't had to think about that, life's a lot easier when you've got someone telling you what to do.
Yeah, that's right.
And a part of what I talk to my team about here is that, we are building a brave culture. Building a brave culture comes with responsibility, and that is own up to your mistakes. Make a mistake, own up to it, and then bring the solution to it.
Yeah. But the metaphor that it reminded me of that a mentor of mine used to use is it was around the empowerment, kind of the empowerment idea, right? Everybody says they want to be empowered. And then if you take a bird that's been in a cage for his whole life, and then you throw open the door to the cage one day and you say, fly, it won't leave the cage. You have to put your hand in there. You have to coax it out. You have to take it little by little. So that's what strikes me is when you said that the way through the resistance was to actually sit in the same room and eat food together and breathe the same oxygen and have them see you as a human being. And the other thing I heard you say is that you spent a good deal of your energy in your workshops and all that asking and listening and saying, tell me what this business is about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Very cool.
And what's interesting in the whole building trust piece is that it's easy to trust people when things go well, but it's always in times of adversity that when in doubt, refer back to your values. Yeah. And that's when you have an opportunity to test people and better understand, what their core, where their core is coming from.
Right.
And that's, the Dogtopiaisms, the super important part of that, and referencing those back with the team regularly in real life events.
So can you give me an example of how that might have played out in a challenge or a moment of adversity?
So, in any franchising environment, there's always challenges around alignment and, or what other brands might call compliance. Compliance is a dirty word in my mind. It's too much of a police state.
Yeah.
Much prefer to use alignment as a piece. It's always easy to take the legal route when it comes to the alignment route, and it's always easy to refer back to the franchise agreement. And so, one of the belief sets we have in the business is that never, ever refer to the franchise agreement. Our role is to constantly be able to sell the features and benefits of the organisation and, convince franchisees that it's the right thing to do. When things go wrong on that journey, and, we had a situation where our sales team had sold a store within an existing territory, and, they fessed up to it straight away, and we had to go about rectifying that. And it would have been very easy to fall into the case of blame, and instead pulled the team together and just said, guys, let's get back to our values, stay loyal to the pack, never throw each other under the bus. We're going to make mistakes. I encourage mistakes. That's part of a brave culture. Let's figure out how to do this together.
Mm. These elements, stay loyal to the pack, wake up every day like it's going to be the most exciting day ever, chase high standards, play to your full potential. Are those the elements that you're referring to, or is there something else?
Yeah, they're our Dogtopia-isms. So it's, love life unconditionally like a dog, stay loyal to our pack, play to our full potential, treat every day like it's the most exciting day ever and base the highest standards of safety. And so, they're all about purpose, trust, accountability, enjoy, not endure, and then tenacity, never give up.
Huh. So what was the first one you said?
Live life unconditionally like a dog. So that's all about purpose.
Yeah.
So, if you enjoy what you do, is one of my absolute values. Don't endure. So life's too short. So, find your purpose, understand your purpose, and then live the team's purpose. And that's, the purpose of the whole noble cause. If you can't believe in what you're doing, then find something else to do.
Right. So I'm thinking this. I think these are wonderful. For the reasons that we talked about before. They're not generic. They're reflective of your brand and your personality, and as an organization, and what you do for the doggies, and all of that, and translating that into human organizational attributes, right? To put it in a more of a clinical sort of a way. So what I'm thinking is, all right, so if I'm an entrepreneur and I'm thinking about my company and, I'm wanting to do something similar to you, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm not going to do is take these words and say, okay, so we're going to stay loyal to our pack because we're kind of a pack too. It wouldn't make sense if I'm a widget manufacturer, for example. What advice would you give to me as just kind of a, small to medium-sized business owner, that really wants to I want to build a culture of alignment myself. Is there kind of a punch list or something that you would offer to me, the things that I need to consider as I go forth and do that for my company?
Yeah, so one of the things I did about 8 years ago while I was running the Gloria Jeans brand throughout the world, we were in 39 countries with a range of different cultures and different management styles throughout the world. What became really very obvious to me was that we needed to establish a planning process. And, you kind of touched on it before in the sense that there's, I think we all know what we should do. Once you've been in business a little while, I think we actually all know what we should be doing.
Right.
But we need something that reminds us of it, because it's easy to get distracted and it's easy to listen to other people's ideas. And so what I did was I built a planning program, and I call it my greatness planning program. And my greatness planning program.
Okay.
And, every business has its own planning processes, and, everyone has done a whole bunch of courses on how to plan and so on. But the reality of it all is that you've got to choose one. So whatever the system is you select, then, preferably build it yourself so you believe in it. And then you've got to implement it. And, the toughest part, businesses are never short of strategic ideas, and they're never short of people with great ideas. But where they fall short is the ability to actually execute.
Right.
And what gets in the way of execution is people. I use an expression that running a business is like a game of soccer. It's real easy till people get involved.
Right.
And so your business planning process has to have a combination of how do you build leaders, how do you build effective individuals, and then how do you execute on all of that? And so, because without great leadership, and the responsibility for leadership lies with everybody, it's not just with your leadership team. Every single person in the organization needs to step up and understand that they accept the responsibility of being a leader in their field and in their role. And then we all have a responsibility for how do you become effective. And, the simple part of it is that there's some really basic rules around it all. There's some basic principles that if you live every single day, then it falls into place. And it's never failed me, by the way. 8 years now, I've taken a series of somewhat underperforming organizations and turned them around with this process. And, the key element to it all, every single time, is tenacity.
So define tenacity.
The ability to take a challenge, break it down into workable parts, and get those parts done.
I think that's, it sounds to me like there's another element to tenacity in addition to the things that you said.
Well, it's never give up.
Yeah, it's kind of like getting those things. It's the execution kind of no matter what, right? I mean,
exactly. Well, it's the execution no matter what, and no matter what the challenges you face as part of it.
Right.
So it really is a key element of breaking through, because the tenacity is a couple of things. Number one, you've got to identify the issue. You've then got to identify the series of fixes, the potential fixes, and then you've got to select one and get on with it. If that doesn't work, you've then got to choose the next one.
Right.
But it is this ability to always believe in what the end looks like and then work at it. I think that's a good part of tenacity, actually, is understanding what the vision at the end looks like. What does completed look like? What does the end goal look like? What does success look like?
Right. Terrific. Let me ask you one more question. This is great stuff, by the way. This is really terrific. I'm looking at your first Dogtopia-ism. What do you call it? Is that
Dogtopiaisms.
Okay, good. We love life unconditionally like a dog.
Mm-hmm.
I love that for a lot of reasons.
It's great, isn't it?
It is great. And so let me ask you about the use of the word love in the business context. Obviously, that's deliberate. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. Yeah, love's an interesting piece in business. I've done an enormous amount of work in it because what's interesting about the dog space is, because it is so emotionally driven. So is coffee, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did an enormous amount of work about love. And because so Kevin Roberts from Saatchi & Saatchi in 96 wrote a book called Love Marks.
I remember it well.
He was really the first to explain how love can be applied to business. And so we did a whole bunch of research with marriage psychologists, because there's a lot of marriage psychology in franchising as well, by the way. What we identified is there's three elements to bring love to life in a business. And so that's mystery, it's intimacy, and it's sensuality. And it's funny when you talk to people, and I've run workshops on this stuff, and when you talk to people about sensuality, they get a little bit embarrassed. Because they immediately go to sexuality, but it has very little to do with sexuality. Your sensuality is about how do you bring to life and how do you actually engage the five senses in a retail environment. So it's what does the business sound like? What does the business feel like when when you touch that door handle when you walk in, when you lean on the benches? How does it make you feel? What does it sound like? So when you walk into our business, do you hear dogs barking uncontrollably? Do you hear team members, with a bit of stress in their voice? Or do you walk in and there's some lovely music? There might be the sound of a happy dog barking, and the team they sound friendly and happy. From a smell point of view, in our business, incredibly important when you walk into our business that it doesn't smell like a dog. Which
right,
is,
yeah.
We joke about that, like our businesses can't smell like a dog. But hey, hang on a second, it's full of dogs.
We act like dogs, but we don't smell like them.
Yeah, exactly. It smells like a duck. And so the application of those five senses is incredibly important, I believe, in any retail environment. Your best retailers in the world absolutely bring to life and understand how to bring those five senses to life in a retail environment.
Right.
And then from an intimacy point of view, it's that, we call it our tripartite relationship in our world. So it's the relationship, that intimate relationship that lives between the dog, the pet parent, and the dogtopian.
Mm-hmm.
It's a three-way relationship.
Right. And
that intimacy and that trust is incredibly important in our business, and the success of our store is incredibly important. And then the last piece is the mystery side of things. Men are terrible at mystery, by the way. And, we're absolutely terrible at being mysterious in a relationship. Women are great at it. That's why they change their lipstick. That's why they do, they'll actually book holidays and surprise holidays and surprise dinners and so on. And, in the retail environment or in any business environment is how do you bring mystery to life in that? And that's just changing things up, allowing people surprises, making people feel that, there's more to life than just showing up every day. And so, there's a range of different things businesses can do, and particularly in our world where, when pet parents turn up, we have coffee available for them, donuts and things like that. And, just as a surprise, hey, thank you, appreciate you turning up, and we'll look after Scruffy today. And so many companies get it wrong, like you see McDonald's with their whole for the love of it. And, love became a word that was kind of tossed around in business, and very few people really understood how to bring it to life because, it should be nurtured. I mean, it's a precious element that you can't just throw around.
Right. Exactly. It does make people squirm.
And it is easy for people to, this is a discussion that you and I can have in great depth at another time, but, we're soulmates on this for sure. But this idea that love is somehow, as I like to call it, California touchy-feely hoo-ha crap, that warm, fluffy, kumbaya stuff, it's insanity. And it's almost literally insanity. It's like, people acknowledge they want love in every aspect of their lives. They want to love their kids. They want their kids to love them. They want to love their spouse. They want their spouse to love them. They want to love their friends and vice versa. And then we go to work and it no longer applies. That somehow in a business context, it just, it has no place. So the argument that I make, I love the way you break it down into the element that you bring in mystery and sensuality and all that, because you're talking about creating the full-on customer experience. Mm-hmm. The way that I approach it is, the case that I make is really very simple. You want your customers to love what you do for them. That's where your competitive advantage comes from. If they're satisfied, it's not good enough, right? So since, love breeds the loyalty, the repeat business, the word of mouth, and all those things that we want as business people. So any business person worth his or her salt will agree with that, right? Then the next step is, if you want to create that kind of experience in any meaningful and sustainable way over time, you have to create a culture that your employees love working in.
Absolutely.
And in order to do that, and this is the super high level simplified version of it, in order to create that culture, there's really no way to do that, to create that culture, unless as a leader you have it yourself first. The other thing. Have you heard the expression?
A fish stinks from the head?
Yeah, exactly. I'd also, point out that, what you and I agree on is that leadership is not the sole responsibility of the head of the fish, as it were, that it's everybody's responsibility. So to create that environment that people love working in, yes, it's the responsibility of the CEO and the C-suite and all that, but it's also my responsibility as a leader within the organization, regardless of my position or title, to find that connection of the heart that I have.
Absolutely.
And with this work. And I got to find it somewhere, even if it's, but I would imagine, and this is just a guess, that with your folks, you don't have people applying to work at Dogtopia that don't love dogs.
No, it's an interesting point, actually. So, because that's one of the first things people say, well, I actually love dogs and I have 3 myself, and they volunteer that information.
Yeah.
And and that love that exists between them and their dog. Like, we joke about the fact that love now, the humanization that's taken place with the dog, it's surpassed the love that exists between the parent and their child. And yet we joke about the fact that parents choose to sleep with their dogs, but they refuse to sleep with their kids.
It's so true. That's very funny. Yeah. And then I would imagine that the challenge then is you have people working there that love dogs. They don't necessarily love people. And of course, it's not the dogs that are paying to be there. It's the people. So it's kind of, I would imagine it's, when you talked about that kind of three-way relationship, that what you're needing to do is cultivate the love of the dog owner for their dog and the appreciation of that, right? So I love dogs. I work here because I love dogs, but I also need to love that our customers love their dogs.
There's a really interesting, we've done a lot of research around that piece. And so, what does a pet parent want for their dog?
Yeah.
And so, we've broken that down into 3 elements. And we've rebuilt our entire training protocols for our room attendants. And in fact, we're just going through the process right now of renaming our room attendants. We've just sent out surveys. The last one went out on Friday. We're down to the top 3, and we're waiting for the votes to come in this week from the team in the field. So from every single room attendant across the network to actually vote on how they want to be described, and we're going to run championships this year. Who is the North America's greatest room attendant? And so it's down to top 3 now, and then we'll trademark it and I want to create this dog championship, and we'll run sessions in center stage in malls and so on, like we used to in the coffee world. So I want to really escalate that hero status of that role in the room.
Yeah.
Because it is about, it's the core of that emotional connection, and it's understanding that the dog, whilst in daycare, it needs 3 things to really satisfy its purpose. So, it needs exercise, and that helps the pet parent live a better life. So when you come home at the end of the day, you can have a glass of wine with your dog rather than having to actually take it for, 5 mile hike.
Right.
It needs to be educated. So our room attendants provide basic training around that, which is part of what gives that dog its purpose. and then needs to be socialized. And so that when you take your dog out into the green belt, it's not a spaz around other dogs. Right. And so it's interesting when you kind of break the elements down, just how simple it can really be. And then how do you bring people into the business that can understand that? Because there's some challenge in this love piece, by the way. Like it certainly makes running a business more difficult than not talking about love, because you need emotionally intelligent people that understand how to do their role within gray spaces rather than black and white line. Mm-hmm. And not everybody likes that.
Right.
It comes back to that point you made earlier where, some people do actually just like being told what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not our environment.
Yeah. And listen, love is not easy. And there is such a thing as tough love as well. And it's easy, like you were saying earlier, it's easy to use the word like in a advertising campaign or in a branding thing, but actually putting it into practice is a messy process, right? I mean, because it requires fully human and not being a cog in the machine that just moves when somebody flips a switch.
It's about being committed to it. I talk to my team about the chicken and the pig,
right.
Don't you? Like when it comes to our Dogtopiaisms and our noble cause and our manifesto, we're committed. Yeah. And we don't just provide the egg for breakfast, we're in.
Well, listen, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure, and I'm looking forward to more conversation with you, Neil. I think you're doing great work, and I'm excited to see what's next.
Appreciate it, Steve. Enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Love is Just Damn Good Business with Steve Farber. Join us again next time, because when customer and employee satisfaction just isn't enough anymore, we are here to back you up with specific ideas to operationalize love to make an enormous difference in your business, personal life, and the world around you. Visit our website at stevefarber.com to leave a review. And don't forget to share the love with your colleagues and friends, because after all, it's just damn good business.